defying all hatred, be the love. Beyond toleration, be the love. Before pride and exaltation, be the love. Be the love. Be the hope.
You are listening to Be the Love, transcending through the shadows into a higher state of consciousness. We are souls on the journey, opening up the conversation to heal, awaken, and connect ourselves and the planet to a higher vibration of love frequency. It starts with you. Everything you need is within you. This is your time. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez, and we are your co-hosts at Be the Love podcast. Thank you for tuning in and ascending with us. Hop on board the Ascension Bus.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love, transcending through the shadows. My name is Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez.
And we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. And I'd like to begin by inviting you just to take a moment and just get centered with us. And if it feels safe for you, to begin by taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, just releasing anything that is keeping you from being present in this moment. And take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just breathing out anything that you're ready to release. And just take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And just feeling connected to the breath in this present moment. And remembering that you always have your breath to come back to. Welcome, Philip Wade. After a 14-year meditation journey, Philip experientially realized the nature of the true self, which referred to itself in the realization as infinite silence. In his former life, Philip was a chartered civil engineer and director of a large consultancy business. That was all left behind in 2009 to focus on a deep inner calling. His style is simple, compassionate, and offers exquisite clarity. His sharing is all based on direct experience and not rooted in any tradition. He shares this profound gift with the world through direct experience, spiritual inquiry, and infinite touch. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Philip.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you here, Stacey and Sam, and also to welcome and thank you to all your listeners listening to this. So a delight to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you here and share your experience with us. And so let's just go ahead and jump right in. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you went from engineering to tapping into the spiritual world.
Sure, yeah. I think the thing that I always say when this question comes up was, although I recognize now there was something there much earlier in my life, I think the trigger in the midst of that engineering career was actually when I was on a skiing holiday in Whistler in the year 2000. So I'm sure everybody knows where Whistler is, West Coast, Canada. And that's thousands of miles from home, 2 weeks skiing. And I remember after a hard day skiing, going to bed one night and then waking up the next morning, and I'd been dreaming about work. And I remember saying to myself under my breath at the time, this has got to stop. And kind of one thing led to another after that, because it wasn't long after that holiday, I was checking out of a bookstore, and I saw this little book, and it was called The Little Book of Calm, and it was by a guy in Australia called Paul Wilson. And I thought, that's what I'm looking for. I was quite calm on the outside, but obviously in the inside there was something. And that had like little things that you could do, and I carried it around in my briefcase for quite some time. And the next thing that remember was a few months later, I was at an airport, um, and I saw another book by the same guy called Calm for Life. And that's what started me on meditation, because the book, amongst many other things, taught me how to meditate. And I absolutely committed to that. Even though my working career was and life was very busy, I made sure I meditated for half an hour every day. And I noticed changes starting to take place quite quickly. And I just kept going and more things opened up, things like alternative therapies and so forth. And I sort of started to pursue some of those in parallel with my working life. And about 5 years into that, awareness has started to arise that my path was no longer starting to lie in the direction of civil engineering, but was going in a new direction. The meditation continued. And by 2009, as you said in the little bio there, I realized the decision had been made. I was going to pursue a calling that I couldn't really articulate properly, but I just knew that I had to follow it, and I would regret it if I didn't. And I just essentially just walked out, having turned a big contract around. I was a hero as far as the company was concerned. The client was very happy, the staff were happy, but I said, I'm going. I just got to go. There's something calling me. And it was really after that things started to accelerate and deepen. And one set of spiritual insights after another, and it just kept going and going and going. So it was like that, really. It was really the meditation that was the central piece for me. And I just followed that to its natural conclusion.
So it sounds like you really just tapped into that self, and that something else was leading you.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have understood that when I started, but certainly as things deepened, and particularly from when I left work behind, I started the meditation, obviously, practice had deepened enough then for me to start to recognize the inner signs more clearly. And I started to follow those. And when anything came up, I absolutely kind of followed it with dedication, really. If there was things that needed to be faced, I faced them. And I'd already done that in the build up to leaving work behind. There were some big decisions made in my life prior to that. But I realized that I just had this sense that unless I face this stuff, deal with this stuff, and follow the signs, I just had this sense that the end game was something important that couldn't really be described. And eventually started to realize it was bringing an end to what is called in many spiritual traditions suffering. And so I just absolutely committed. There was nothing more important than this in my life, really.
That sounds like a really beautiful journey that's led you to this point.
Yeah, I would say very lucky, very blessed. And it wasn't necessarily all a bed of roses. I wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea, but the things that I faced and dealt with had to be faced and dealt with to get to this point. And it was that commitment and the recognition of the importance of it, I would say, were really, really key, I suppose. Yeah.
It sounds like just tapping into that place and maybe not falling into that resistance that so many people might.
Absolutely. I see that a lot in people I work with now, and I realized that it was just resistance, and that any of the stuff I was carrying emotionally, energetically, was actually my stuff, and it needed to be dealt with. And so I realized that actually, because of things I'd done various complementary therapies as part of the process, I realized the benefits of not running away from any of that. And actually, as I say to people now, look it straight in the eye, face it head on, but from a space of awareness. And so for me, it wasn't about resisting, it was about following the calling, really. Although there was clearly resistance there at times.
So let's talk about societal labels and the labels that we give ourselves
Sure.
versus who we really are, especially in terms of, following our truth, right? And
Sure.
so, and how we dig deeper into recognizing and embracing our truth through spiritual inquiry and self-realization.
Yes, do you want me to say something about that whole thing about, so I think the key thing that eventually I would say to people right up front is that which you are seeking, and everybody's seeking this, whether they recognize it consciously or not, is that which you already are. And by that, I mean infinite awareness or infinite consciousness, or as it expressed itself in the realization, infinite silence. These are all different words for the same thing. And the only block to it is a belief in that which you are not, which it manifests it as I am this body mind, and the story that goes with it. Now, the belief in that is so strong, and it's reinforced by all the conditioning you go through right from the moment of your birth, by whether it be parents, siblings, teachers, society in general. Everything says you are this body mind. But actually, as you deepen into a meditative practice, you start to recognize that there's a presence, an awareness that is untouched and unmoved by all of this. And the process of self-realization is about realizing that. That's hence the word realization. And that has never not been here in all of your existence. And it's about coming to that awareness. And there's some simple things we can talk about and go onto to help people start to see that, if you want to do that at some point. So
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what how you came to that conclusion after coming from where you were to where you are now and recognizing that inner self and that awareness.
sure, it was a combination of things, I think, really in my own. Obviously, I'd committed to the meditation, and that brought stillness and calm. In parallel with that, I pursued one or two things. You people might have heard of it, emotional freedom techniques. It was quite popular in the US, I think. I also explored Reiki and other forms of hands-on healing called quantum touch. A combination of all the awarenesses and things I was learning there started to open me up more and more. But really the key was the meditation. And then I suppose one thing led to another. And I started to open up to a spiritual inquiry, really, that resolving a question, who am I really? And as I only read a relatively small number of what I would call books from what I would call truly realized beings, but they had a profound influence on me, because by this time, with a combination of the meditation and all those other practices, I started to see the truth behind what was being pointed at in the words, and it started to manifest through quite profound spiritual experiences. The really first major one of those was a deep seeing I had in 2011, which came in a kind of, it wasn't really a dream, it was kind of a dreamlike state, but it was a meditative state where I was given a very clear insight that I was to let all of the stuff I'd been learning go. And the message was it was basically use your heart-based intention what it came to me was use your heart-based intention to connect with the spheres, was the words I got. And I remember coming to the next morning and remembering this kind of message that had appeared during the night. And I said, what was it was said? Just use your intention to connect with the spheres. So by this time, I was already very practiced with the meditation, very practiced with alternative things like EFT, quantum touch, and so forth. I thought, oh, let's just give it a go. And the instant I made that choice, there was a huge whoosh of energy went through my body. And this lasted for quite some time. And it felt like I was being reprogrammed from the inside. Like upgraded to Philip version, 10.0 or something. It was like that. And I thought, wow, that was amazing. And this lasted for some time. Because up until that point, with everything I'd learned, it felt like you always had to work at, do A and B happens kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But literally, there was just a choice made, open to this. And what reinforced it was I actually felt compelled to share it with a group of friends I was working with at the time on various aspects of healing. And I said, guys, just try this. Just try this one line. Just use your intention to connect with the spheres. And the reports came flooding in back by email over the next few days, and they all had similar experiences, and they were like absolutely amazed. And I thought, well, really onto something here. And the next thing happened, I got this really strong message that this was the words open source, which it wasn't a term I understood in those days. But long story short, it was the 20th anniversary, almost to the day, of the forming of the open source foundation for the Linux software. And I found a short video about it, and I realized that I'd been given this awareness and this experience to share with the world. So I did that and created this website and open source way of sharing what became known as the spheres of light meditation. And that it then turned out eventually, as the realization manifested in 2014, was the precursor step to what is now the infinite silence meditation, which I share with the world. And it was through using that meditation, it was like a bridge, an energetic bridge. And it was that one in 2011. And then there was a series of other mega experiences in the lead up where profounder and deeper scenes, which would take quite a long time to explain to you, happened. But they were off the scale type experiences where the body was like, it was plugged into the electricity mains, this kind of thing. And each of those, the scene became clearer and deeper, and I became aware that there was just this presence, which was then made unequivocally clear in 2014 when, in a very, very profound meditative space, I'm going to use some words here now to describe that which is beyond words, so you kind of have to go with this. But in and as that space, there was no sense of this body that we call Philip. There was no sense of an identity of Philip. There was no thought. There was only a sense of eternity. That's the only word I could use to describe that, eternity, infinity. No personal dimensions to that, and knowing that I, non-personal, was this. And not only that, there'd never been a time that I'd not been that. And I sometimes express it this way: it was like everything had changed and nothing had changed. Come on to that in a moment. So that you could say that experience lasted for eternity, and that would be accurate. But at some point in human time, linear time, there was still no sense of Philip, still no sense of a body. Two words emerged, and that was infinite silence. And in that same moment, the vaguest sense of a body, a form, a physical form, I could only say started to reappear. It was like it was a shell at that point, very, 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 very faint, and gradually over, I don't know how long, it started to re-emerge, along with the remembering of Philip, but a realization that, as I said, everything had changed and nothing had changed. And what I mean by that is who I thought I was, which was Philip, the man with that story we've just talked a little bit about, wasn't actually true. That which I really was this infinite silence, infinite consciousness, or infinite awareness. And I'd never not been that. And that is so unequivocally clear. It was like, you don't forget that, you don't miss that. And so from that day, there's never been, shall we say, a moment where that awareness isn't there. And a part of the insight that came with that, my body was on fire with this energy shift. And the mind tried to kick back in, and I was given the insight that life is death. And what I realized instantly that meant was it was the identity of Philip was dying or had died. And what remained was life itself, which is the infinite silence. And it was really through that process, this unequivocal awareness that has never not been here, was confirmed fully. I'd been seeing parts of it up until that point. And then it was made unequivocally clear. Yeah.
That sounds really beautiful. It sounds like you were really able to drop away those labels, the labels that we tend to give ourselves, of who we are as humans. The daughter, the son, the artist, the doctor, whatever label you give yourself. That sounds like it really fell away. It wasn't Philip the engineer. It was just this other deep, infinite self.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned maybe taking us through a little exercise around diving into that, or maybe a meditative exercise around the who am I. Would you be called to do that now at this point?
Yeah, we can precursor that a little bit, and
Sure.
then do the little what I call the who am I exercise. But it might be useful for the listeners to just first, and you can close your eyes whilst doing this, people listening to this. You can do it with your eyes open, but it's just, you'll probably find it a little bit easier if you've got your eyes closed. Just first, as your eyes are closed, simply noticing all that's unfolding here in your body. So there's breath there. There's physical sensations. There may be some emotion for some people, or feelings. And there may even be thoughts there. But as you're noticing all of this without any judgment, just recognizing that over your life, all of these phenomena, because all of these things are phenomena, they come and go. So 1 minute there may be no emotion there, and then there is an emotion, and then that passes over time. The same is true with thoughts, feelings, all sensations. They're all changing over time. So the question is, what is it? Who is it that sees all those changes? Are you the changing field of thoughts, feelings, emotions? Or are you the one that can see and report all that happening? The mere fact that all these things can be observed and reported is a clear indicator that actually there's an awareness here that is simply watching or a witness to the waves of all these phenomena. They come, they arise, and they go. And they're seen. To be able to report to them, to be able to share with other people, there has to be a presence that sees the arising and the falling away. So I'm just going to pause there for a second in the little exercise, just to kind of just check in with Stacey and Sam, just to say to people, this is a simple way, this is a precursor to another exercise I'm going to go into in a moment, to be able to recognize that there's a presence or a witness, is the word I like, to the phenomena. And because we so often identify with the phenomena, I am this emotion or this thought, but actually that's not really true when you look at it in the way I'm describing. There's a presence that saw the emotion come and go.
So what would you call, or how would you identify that presence?
So that presence is what I refer to as the silent witness. It's simply silent because it is silent, and it's simply an awareness that is simply observing the appearance of phenomena. You see, consciousness is like a green screen. You're all familiar with green screens. You know, you can project anything you like on the green screen. So all these phenomena are simply appearances, but the silent witness is untouched and unmoved by it. It just simply observes. So the key to meditation and so forth is about recognizing that witnessing presence. And if you can start to open to that and see that, then you're onto a winner.
And so how does one recognize that?
So we're going to go a little bit deeper now with the exercise to start to open that up a little bit more, because that was like a precursor step to start to see that the phenomena are coming and going. So what we'll do now is take it a couple of steps further to help people recognize this more clearly. And I call it the Who Am I exercise. So we can close our eyes again. Again, you can do this with your eyes open, but it's probably going to be a lot easier if you've got your eyes closed. So having recognized the possibility that there's some witnessing presence, this silent witness here, we can now close our eyes and simply, silently, inside, ask the question, who am I? Who am I? can just rest with that for a few moments. And if you want, before we do the next phase, we can just open our eyes again and just check in here. I don't know if you want to share anything, if anything came to you, Stacey, but what I could say when I do that with groups of people, there could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or even online, the kinds of responses that I get when I get people to do that exercise vary from people going straight to mind and saying, I am this body, I'm a woman, a man, a role, a parent, something like that, through to people who are perhaps been used to meditation a bit more, who start to get a sense of maybe that's not quite right. I might get a word like love or stillness or something like that.
That's what came to me is love, pure love.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
me it wasn't so much a word as it was just kind of, I just envisioned as soon as, you said and I said to myself, who am I? Just this burst of light. That's all I saw, almost like fireworks. Just it was like, oh, wow.
Good. So in both of those cases now, and these are quite common things that you're both reporting there, and the listeners might have had their own things. So things like this are starting to move deeper into and get closer to this awareness that I'm talking about. So what we do then now is take the exercise a little bit further, and this is useful for people who are perhaps not used to meditation or have a spiritual practice. This can help them go deeper with this. So we close our eyes again, and as we do that, we're just asking this time, who am I without memory? Who am I without memory? And we can just sit with that for a moment or two. The listeners can do the same. And just see what emerges. Who am I without memory? Good. So whenever it seems right to you, we can open our eyes. And whilst Sam and Stacey are just doing that, when I share that with a group, people typically start to go deeper. They move beyond, if they were in body-mind identification, they start to move into love, peace, so forth. People who are more, perhaps been more meditating and so forth, they start to get words like void, silence, stillness. And this is getting us much closer. I don't know whether you guys want to share what you got there, if anything.
Yeah, I'll definitely share it. So I got 3 words because you did ask it a few times. So the first one I got was energy. The second one I got was infinity. And then the third response I got was no one.
Perfect.
Yeah. And when I got the no one message, my I guess you could say like my ego brain or something immediately went to, well, that sounds kind of negative. Like, no, but it's actually a positive thing. Because with who am I without memory, I am no one. And that's good. It's not a bad thing, you know.
And Yeah, aside from the ego bit, did you notice anything else energetically there for you as you got that?
I did notice energetically that it felt, and again, this is not to be a negative thing, but it did feel empty. But it was a good empty, like one of those empties that there's just space,
Brilliant.
space. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, good, good.
And that's the feeling I got, was just the empty feeling of just everything else fell away. There was just like a deep sense of peace.
Mhm.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
I'm glad you used the word empty there, Sam, and you got the same thing there, Stacey, because energy, was it energy, infinity, no one. These are all actually very, now we're starting to get really clear now, and the empty word, as to what this is that I'm talking about. Because it is infinite, as in infinite silence.
Hmm.
The emptiness that you're referring to, you said, uh, as you quite rightly noticed, it's not a negative thing. It was actually, sometimes it's referred to as one empty fullness.
Hmm.
There's a oneness to it. It's completely devoid of all of the issues around a personal identity, and that's what it's empty of, identity and belief. But it's full of energy, that's the energy word, that is infinite, and it's also self-aware. And what I mean by that, it's aware of itself as that, as this energy, as this infinite field of energy that is, should we say, both empty and full at the same time.
Mm.
And consciousness, it turns out a useful way to look at consciousness is energy that's aware of itself. And this emptiness that you talked about, Sam, is infinite and it's non-personal.
Hmm.
And it's also unchanging and unmoving. And it's aware, it sees, so to speak. It's called the unseen seer. That's what infinite silence is, or infinite consciousness. And it's that you, we, all of us, collectively are that. And there's never been a time, and there never will be a time, you're not that. But it's easy to forget that because you identify, because you've been conditioned, and everybody has been conditioned into identifying with what's going on in the mind.
Hmm.
And so we associate a lot of our attention up here. But as we take away, the second part of the exercise is very clever. It takes away without memory. It takes away all of the identity and belief conditioning in one fell swoop. And you suddenly start to open to awareness. Now, this simple exercise that I did in 3 steps there, people can use, as I like to say, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's a meditation in its own right, and it can be done in a matter of moments. I took a bit longer over it there just to explain it to people. But you could do this, just stop in the midst of your day. Who am I? Or, if need be, who am I without memory? And this, you can do this several times throughout a day as a very simple meditation to bring you from here into the silence of the heart space. And if you do this regularly, and if this is the only thing you ever did, this would be enough. This would be enough.
That is beautiful, because it really does drop away all the stories that we tell ourselves.
Exactly.
The I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I don't belong, which, kind of leads us into talking about some of those beliefs and how some of those beliefs might limit us.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want me to comment on that? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So the only block, I may have said this already, but it's worth repeating 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. The only block to the experiential realization of this true self, which is non-personal, as infinite silence or infinite consciousness, is belief. And that belief manifests as I am this body mind. And you've been conditioned into believing that, and you've believed it. That once that belief falls away, which is what the second part of the exercise does, then you start immediately to open to that awareness. And you see, these beliefs, they act as a block to it. And whilst there's only one core fundamentally flawed belief, I am this body mind, and I am separate from the rest of the universe as a result of that, immediately there's suffering. This is, the Buddha said, in life there is suffering. What he meant by that was that the instant there's identification, there's belief, and there's attachment, which all come in a package, then there's suffering. That belief goes, the suffering goes. However, because we've spent so long as the body mind and thinking with that, it's rare for that all to go in one fell swoop. And the reason for that is because with belief and suffering, we build up an emotional body. And belief is core to the emergence, so to speak, and the experience of the emotional body. And so belief acts as a limitation, it acts as a block, and it also acts like a kind of armor, because this identity is trying to protect and preserve itself from all the other identities out there, which have some similar and some different belief sets. And this causes internal conflict within you. And because all the egos in the world are trying to, in small s self-preservation mode, they get into conflict with all the other egos. And that could lead to a family dispute, it could lead to a relationship breakdown, it could relate to problems in a community, it results in war between nations, all because of this one mistaken belief. And every belief out there, or whatever it is a subset of this one mistaken belief of separation from the infinite universe. Every belief. And so, to get straight to the point, so to speak, we have to look at the belief, I am this body mind, and see that it's fundamentally flawed. So every war, every conflict, everything that's ever happened in terms of suffering all came from this belief.
And how might changing that belief change our outer existence?
Dramatically. It can happen quickly, but that's usually quite a challenge because we really love our beliefs. But if one was to completely, in this moment, right here, right now, be prepared to totally and utterly let go of all of those beliefs, then what would naturally flow and emerge was the awareness of I am awareness, I am infinite silence. And you actually both touch that in that little exercise.
Yeah.
What happens typically is, because of conditioning, mind quickly kicks back in, and you start to go, but like you talked about, Sam.
So let's talk.
So go on.
Sorry. Let's talk a little bit about that I am presence, because everything that follows the I am is an identification. So
Correct.
how powerful is that those two words together?
I am, the words I am are very powerful. And we typically, as you've just pointed out, follow them with I am, and it might be a woman or a man in some of my case. And then you become, that becomes a belief. The instant you add that, you instantly believe that. And so you become that, you become your beliefs. Now, the I am presence is something that's misunderstood, so I need to unpack that a little bit, if I may.
Sure.
Because people, we're so used to using the word I, we use the word I a lot. And what we mean is the personal I, as Stacey or as Sam or any of our listeners. The I am presence is an infinite I. It's not personal. I, infinity, the infinity, Sam, am. I am equals being, pure being, not personal, not in any way. There's nothing after this am. And that I am, you remember I referred to spheres and spheres of light earlier. One of the insights that came to me and the realizations came to me was that spheres of light was actually a direct reference in another way to this I am presence. Spheres of light equals the I am presence. If you wanted to kind of like give a visual image, the reason it chose spheres is because the sphere, from, if you like, the center of a sphere, infinite in every direction. An infinite sphere of light is the I am presence. And from that I am presence, the whole physical domain gets created. However, there's something more important still to understand here. I am, the I am presence, can be seen. It can be noticed. Just even this infinite I am that's not personal. In that exercise that we did, Who Am I Without Memory, if you'll be able to notice, and we perhaps do this later when we do the meditation, even this sense of the universal I am presence can be seen. There's an awareness that sees it. What that tells you is that there's something, it's not a thing, but I'll have to use the word, there's an awareness even before what's called the I am presence. So that which is, that which we all are, is before I am, before the infinite I am. And it's that is the infinite silence, or the infinite consciousness, or the infinite awareness. The first expression of the infinite silence is the I am, is the I am presence, is spheres of light. These are the same thing. Or in spiritual traditions that have recognized this in different ways, it could be referred to as spirit. If you came from a, shall we say, a Christian tradition, you would call it, there's a triality in consciousness, triangle. They're actually all in one, and it's best more effectively described as, in my language, as it manifested in me, or here as Philip, which not me personally, in this awareness. Infinite silence, which is infinite consciousness or infinite awareness. Spheres of light, or the I am presence, both the same. And then form, physical form. And that's the triality of consciousness. And you need all of these three to create experience, along with space and time. Now, people might recognize that as, say from a Christian tradition, they would call that Father, Spirit, Son. That's the same triality. But the term father gives the impression that of gender, and it's genderless. It would be more accurate to say father, mother as one. Spirit, spheres of light, or ion presence. Son would be better expressed as son, daughter. In many spiritual traditions, this triality is recognized. But to take the kind of conditioned labels away from it, I will refer to it as infinite silence, spheres of light, and form. The triality of consciousness, but the core of that is the infinite silence. So I hope that was useful. Sorry, that was quite long, but
No, that was absolutely wonderful. I love that. I love that reframe, because then, we're also, I think a lot of spiritual traditions or religious traditions tend to take out the feminine, and and so it's nice to have that being brought in as an all-encompassing, the son, daughter, father, mother, because it's all inclusive.
absolutely. I was just trying to sort of say it would be more accurate to say it that way than the way that it's been articulated in some traditions.
Yeah, no, I think that was a beautiful explanation. So thank you for sharing that. So I'd like to, you mentioned in some of your work about the emotional pain body. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the emotional pain body is and why it's so important for spiritual growth and ascension?
Sure, yeah. So the emotional pain body, or the emotional body, which is the way I most often refer to it as, is a direct result of that belief again, I am this body mind. And so with that comes a polarity in consciousness. You get a polarity which is basically fear and love, kind of like we have this spectrum of fear and love. And with that, because there's this polarity or appearance of a duality, opposites, duality is consciousness is opposites, hot, cold, tall, small, fear, love. These are dual experiences. That forms with that belief in place. And so you go through childhood being conditioned into believing in something that actually you're not. So immediately there's an inner conflict, which you might not realize as a young child, that's getting built upon and built upon, moving you away, or giving the experience of moving you away from the source of that which you are. This in itself is a cause of suffering, but it then gets built upon by conditioning from parents, siblings, and experiences in life where you're told you're not good enough, or something goes wrong and you're attached to an outcome or things being a specific. All of these experiences, or some particularly traumatic event occurs, all of these build the emotional body, and it builds and builds and builds over time. And people will notice that events in life get triggered by events in life. As something happens, one minute you're calm, and then somebody says something to you, or something happens on the television, and suddenly you're feeling very emotional, upset, angry. All of that is coming from the emotional body that's been built up and built up, and it's all historic. It's all historic. Now, and we know that it's the emotional body because we can use an example. So an event might occur and you're walking down the street, everything's okay. Let's say you're with a friend. An event happens and suddenly you see this event and you're now, say, very upset by it, but your friend is completely unmoved by it. Now, was it the event, or was it something in you? And I've described it that way for people to recognize instantly. It can't be the event that was the cause. There was something you were carrying, and this event occurred that caused an energetic triggering of the emotional body. Now, this is very important in spirituality because what life is doing all of the time is presenting not challenges, but invitations for us to move beyond the suffering. Now, you might say, oh, it was that person there, they made me angry. Well, not really, because your friend was not touched by it at all. We're not condoning the unloving behaviors, because that does happen in life of others. But what we're saying here is actually there's an invitation for you to move beyond this event that's triggering you. And so people see emotions and so forth as challenges, and you're taught generally, certainly in the UK, and I guess it's pretty similar with you guys, you tend to pretend to suppress them, not deal with them, not face, run away from them. This is actually a completely the wrong approach, or ineffective, maybe not wrong is not the right word, an ineffective approach. Actually, the instant there's an emotion here, there's a triggering of the emotional body, the key is to recognize it, accept that it's here, not fight it, not run away from it, feel it fully, and now remembering the who am I without memory exercise, look at it from that awareness space directly. And what you'll find is that, and this may take practice at first, when you trust that awareness, that infinite awareness, that empty stillness, looking at the emotion, recognizing you're not the emotion, a miracle will happen. It will start to dissolve. The wave will have arisen, and effortlessly it will dissolve of its own accord. And the more you can trust that presence, the awareness, the infinite silence, the faster that will happen. And all of life is going through, is inviting you to dissolve this emotional body and recognize yourself as awareness. Even the most mundane events are all invitations. Some of them are bigger than others, and that's usually because we're not listening. You know, we're going with this, the head, rather than the awareness of the heart. And dissolving the emotional body is central to the realization of the self, because people can have quite profound awakening type experiences. This happens quite a lot. They may have a deep awakening, a deep seeing, and then suddenly find themselves back in suffering. And the reason that happens is because it's like almost like a pull, a gravitational pull from the emotional body to come back into identification. And so the emotional body, for an anchored realization, has to be dissolved sufficiently so that one can rest as awareness always. That's how important the pain body or the emotional body is. And the more that you can become practiced at recognizing awareness and facing what comes up as it happens, the more that you will deepen into the realization of that awareness.
And I love how you used emotional body over pain body, because you're right. I mean, the example that you provided, you know, of a man and his friend, and then something happens and it angers the man, but it does not anger the friend. And when me specifically, when I think about, you know, the emotional pain or things in my past, it's always, you know, in a negative sense, right? So we have to work on the negative, but that's not necessarily true. And, you know, Buddha talked about this as well, is that just as the negative, so is the positive. You know, so the times when, you know, you're happy, you're ecstatic, you're excited about something, it would still be good practice to take the step back, to acknowledge, to feel the emotion, and then to let it go. Because I mean, it's hanging on the negative is it's simple, and to people like myself who has post-traumatic stress, it's comfortable, right? But there are people who hang on to that positive and that excitement and that happiness, and that's comfortable as well. But to hang on to either emotion for for the observer, for the watcher, um, the observer, the watcher doesn't know emotion, right? It's the piece. It's that empty. So that's what I have to remind myself too. It's not just for the negative. It's also for the positive. It's the same practice for both, right?
Bingo. Absolutely. Great awareness, Sam. Fantastic. Because people talk about go with the positive, but actually, positive and negative are just two poles,
Hmm.
the two sides of the same coin. And this that we're talking about, this awareness, is neither negative or positive, it just is. And so, on the side of every positive, there's a negative there waiting to sort of pull you back. And so what ends up happening in life is you swing back and forth, and there's this pendulum going on, and there's these highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. But the awareness is untouched and unmoved by it all. As you started to see when you got that infinity, no one energy, that emptiness. Now that is the source of peace, because people are taught, as you've seen clearly in your own experience, to predicate their happiness on events. I'll be happy when, but that is suffering. That is suffering. Joy, true joy, doesn't have an opposite. It's a natural perfume of the awareness of the silence. And actually that's what pure being is. For pure being, which is a manifest expression, we use words like love, grace, gratitude. These are expressions, perfumes of that awareness. And they're not event-based. They're not event-based. So you're absolutely right to say identifying with the positive or the negative is just another form of suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just another form of suffering. That which is before and beyond all that, that's where the peace is.
I love that, because then you're recognizing that it is in this present moment. It's not one or the other. It's just right here, right now.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings us to then an acceptance of that, and then then there's just a natural perfume that arises of stillness, joy, peace, that's not based on any turn of events.
Not the meaning that we give
to
the
meaning.
external.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So would you like to lead us through one of your infinite silence meditations?
Sure, I'd love to do that. Yeah. So we can give this about 10 minutes, something like that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So just as a precursor to it, and it's been useful for us to have had the conversation the way that we have. In the meditation, I'll use some of the terminology that we've explored already. So I'll start off with that awareness exercise. At the first part of the meditation, I'll invite you and everybody listening to open at some point in the meditation to the experience of spheres of light, the I am presence, in other words. But I'll do it as spheres of light first. And then I'll invite you to open to the witness, the silent witness, and then infinite silence. I'm just kind of pre-warning people just with these terms so that they're not, oh, what was that? You know. Yeah.
Sure.
So if we're going to get ourselves comfortable, whether we're going to sit down or lie down, and just simply, firstly, closing our eyes. And as you close your eyes, just simply become aware of your body. Any feelings, emotions, sensations, the breath. Just simply, silently observing those without any judgment, just accepting they are here. Just like you're watching a movie from the inside. And as you simply, silently witness these phenomena without judgment, just be open now from your heart to the experience of spheres of light. Spheres of light. This energy of spheres of light is the same as the universal, non-personal state. I am the infinite. I am just allowing, just noticing I am. Knowing now, this I am can only be seen or witnessed from a deeper awareness that is the silent witness in infinite silence. Merging with this silent witness that sees the I am. And this silent witness is rather like some ice in an ocean of water, and it's melting, dissolving, becoming one with the water. And the water is an ocean of infinite silence. Infinite awareness. Just for now, in silence, we trust. In silence, you will realize your truth. In truth, you will realize you are silence, infinite silence. Be still and know this. All that I am is infinite silence. Is all that am I. Eternity. still and know. Infinite silence. In a moment, continuing to rest in this as this ocean of awareness. I will ring the Tingsha bells 3 times. As the sound of the bells gently fades to silence, aware of your body, the chair you are sat on, or whatever you may be lay on. Aware of the space, and whenever the moment is right for you, just gently opening your eyes. Namaste. Good.
Well, I am zenned out.
Oh.
Ooh. A couple times I actually felt, almost like leaving the body, like it felt floaty, a couple times. And it was really interesting to observe that, because I felt the lightness of, the only way I can describe is, leaving the body. But immediately after that was the fear, and then boom, right back in. It just got pulled in, and it happened a couple times. Like, oh, and I didn't put any judgment on it really. I just kind of like, oh, so that's what happened. And I also too got another word come in as well during the meditation, and the word that I got was limitless, when you were talking about the empty and the silence. And I was thinking, well, silence is limitless. We have all this noise, whether it's from outside sources like the media, or family, friends, or if it's within through our own mind, our ego, things like that. But underlying all of that is this infinite silence, this limitless silence. And I think when I got the word limitless, that's what it was referring to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. You see, everything, without silence, there would be no other phenomena.
Mhm.
Everything's a vibration. So everything is a vibration, and all of those vibrations return to silence.
Right.
Mhm.
And emerge from silence.
Mhm.
Circular.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt everything. I've had a lot going on in my life lately, and so a lot of that I just felt just fall away. And I went into the void, and I just fell right into just that silence, and nothing else mattered, and all of a sudden I also felt this oneness and connection with all. And
Yes.
so that was just beautiful, just to go into that place. Yeah.
Yes.
Folks, with that infinite silence meditation, and unlike many meditations, the difference with this is that it emerged as part of the realization in a couple of phases, and it's very powerful because it takes you directly to a space of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever you're doing meditation wise, it's about recognizing the awareness presence that's already there, and that way all of the activity, all of the noise falls away of its own accord, no effort required. So
That was,
very powerful meditation.
yes, that was beautiful. And now I just want to ask a question too, because I get this question a lot as I guide through people in my own practice, my own psychotherapy practice through meditation. And a lot of people ask me, am I doing it right if I fall asleep, or if I, what is the best answer? What is your answer to that?
So the falling asleep thing, it happens, and there's a number of reasons it can happen, but usually if it's happening in meditation, there's a tiredness in the body that's not being recognized and embraced. People, particularly these days in the West and world in particular, are living life at 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so, somebody starts meditating, particularly if you're new to meditation, they first might start recognizing all the noise that's going on, and the other thing that they do is fall asleep. Neither of those are bad, and the falling asleep happens because of that. There's a tiredness there that's not being recognized, but it's a natural relaxation response to the meditation. So that's an indicator you do need more rest. That's important, but also there can be a tendency to go with that, and awareness can see, as you deepen into awareness, can see that tendency of wanting to go to sleep, and that can be watched also. And as that is watched, and you're not likely to fall asleep, there'll be a freshness that starts to come up. It's not wrong, it's not bad, and if your body needs more sleep, then sleep. But if you're new to meditation, it's good to do it when you're fresher. So probably not a good idea to start meditating at 10 o'clock at night. If that's when you're first starting, it might be more effective to sort of get up and do the meditation first thing. That doesn't mean to say you can't meditate late at night, but if you can bring yourself back to awareness, using the Who Am I exercise, for instance, throughout the day, then if you do meditate later and you start falling, you're less and less likely to start falling asleep.
Yeah, that's great. It's really about listening to the body, listening to what the body needs, and if it needs rest, there's a reason, that it's going into that place. To just have awareness around that. Wonderful.
And a bit about the noise part that I commented on, when people are new to meditation, they start to notice the noise. And previously they haven't really noticed it, it's just been there and they've been identified. This is a good awareness actually, because the instant you're recognizing it, it's awareness that is seeing the noise, and you're not the noise is just an appearance. So this is also
Love that. And that distraction that keeps us all kind of away from the oneness and the awareness, the observer, right? Is that noise of really taking it within to notice and pay attention to that observer, that the awareness of self within.
perfect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Philip, for taking the time to lead us through that and to be here and share your experience with us.
It's
And
been
so,
a delight, and hope that your listeners have benefited from it. So.
yeah, and so tell our listeners how they can find you and what you're currently working on.
Sure, yeah. Probably the best and easiest way to find me is on my website, which is gatewaylocation.org, all one word, gatewaylocation.org. And actually, that domain name came before the realization. It came as part of the process. So that's gatewaylocation.org. That's the simplest way. There's loads of free resources on there, self-realization resources, spiritual insights, YouTube videos, you name it. Another good resource to connect with me on is YouTube itself. If you're into YouTube and put my name along with Infinite Silence, you'll find my channel, Philip Wade Infinite Silence. And then another resource is my Facebook page, which is at Infinite Silence Self-Realization. So those are ways people can connect with me. I'm always doing very regularly, but not always periodically, live streams on any aspect of self-realization. I get many prompts from the awareness to talk about this, talk about the other, and I'll happily to take questions live. So that they happen quite frequently. I've been doing quite a lot of, because of lockdown and stuff, online retreats. So I did quite a few last year. I've got one, this will have happened by this time goes out to your listeners, but look out on the website for more online retreats. And if people can't attend any of the dates, what we've started to do, and we did this with the one that took place on the 1st to the 3rd of January this year, a 2.5-day online retreat. It was on Zoom, we recorded it, and it's been edited into 5 YouTube videos, and we're making it available for a nominal donation to people. And it's a great way for people to get a sense of what being on a retreat with me is like, to decide if it's for them. So these at the moment it's a ridiculously low donation of £5 just to get 10 hours of profound insight, spiritual inquiry, meditation, and exercises. Once the first 20 of those are gone, it'll be a sliding scale of donations, and you'll be able to choose whatever donation is right for you. And we're going to do that with both last year's retreats, which haven't yet been released in this way, and the forthcoming retreat, and probably future retreats. So people can have that as a permanent resource. And the reason that's a valuable resource, apart from maybe not being able to make the date or to see what it's like, which are both good reasons to try it that way first, what Lee found, who edited the videos for me, and he was a participant, he had to listen carefully to where all the kind of little glitches were and edit them out. And he found that by going over it again, he really deepened the experience, and he went much deeper. So it's a great resource there to have. You could watch it once and then maybe watch it again a couple of weeks later, or 3 weeks later, a month later, and you'll get more from it. And there's a little bit more structure in a retreat than maybe randomly going across my YouTube channel and trying to find the next right video, so to speak. So those are a great resource that we're doing more of, the online retreats and also the recordings of them.
Wonderful, thank you. And we will put those in the show notes so people have access to all those resources that you have available. So thank you so much for being here today, Philip, and sharing your experience with us. And thank you for listening to our show. Stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you like this show, share the love by sharing it with your friends. And if you want to support the work that we're doing, please consider making a donation to our show by visiting our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love Podcast. And until next time, love yourself, love each other, and love the world. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Take care. We'll talk to you later. Thank you again, Philip.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather Lynn, for providing us with your beautiful song to accompany our show, Be the Love. If you would like to learn more about Heather Lynn and her music, please visit her website at heatherlynnmusic.com. And thank you, Chrissy Grace at Leading Edge Productions for the beautiful design and graphics.
And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we are souls on the journey. And thank you for hopping on the Ascension bus with us. And remember, there is always a seat for you.